The planet Varelia was not kind to strangers. Its sky burned in shades of violet and gold, with swirling clouds that seemed to move like living creatures. The air was thick, heavy with strange minerals that made it hard to breathe. Yet, for Kale, a human warrior, this hostile world was just another battlefield. He had seen countless planets torn apart by war, and he had learned to trust his instincts. To survive no matter the odds, Kale's boots sank slightly into the cracked, metallic soil as he ran, each step sending tiny sparks into the air. Around him, the sounds of war filled the landscape, the low hum of energy weapons, explosions echoing like thunder, and distant shouts from both humans and Zitharians. The Zitharians were unlike anything Kale had ever seen. They were tall, elegant, with translucent skin that shimmered faintly under Varelia's strange light. Their eyes glowed in colors he could barely describe, and their movements were precise, almost unnatural. Kale had a mission: infiltrate a Zitharian stronghold and gather intelligence that could turn the tide of the war. But the moment he entered the ruins of the stronghold, he realized the mission had changed. Among the rubble, he heard a faint cry, a sound so weak and desperate that it cut through the chaos around him. He followed the sound cautiously, weapons ready, until he found her. The Zitharian princess, Lyra, lay on the ground, her body trembling and weak. Her long, silver hair was tangled and covered in dust. Her eyes, glowing faintly, met his with a mixture of fear and pleading. Kale froze for a moment. In all his years of battle, he had seen soldiers and civilians in danger, but seeing a princess, a symbol of an entire civilization, in such a state, stirred something unexpected in him. "Princess Lyra," he whispered, kneeling beside her. She tried to speak, but only a weak gasp escaped her lips. Kale scanned the area. There were no enemies nearby at this moment, but the stronghold could collapse at any second. Time was slipping away. He picked her up carefully. Her body was lighter than he expected, almost fragile. As he carried her, he felt the faint pulse of her life force weak, fading fast. Kale knew he had to act quickly. The nearest safe zone was several kilometers away, across terrain that was unstable and dangerous. Yet, he didn't hesitate. Survival was instinct, but compassion perhaps that was something more human, something that had guided him even when logic screamed otherwise. As he ran, Kale's mind raced. How did the princess survive this attack? Why was she alone in the heart of the stronghold? And most importantly, how could he save her? Zitharian biology was vastly different from human biology. Their systems were delicate, far more sensitive to damage. Kale had trained with human medics, but this was uncharted territory. The princess's breathing grew shallow. Her glowing eyes flickered like dying embers. Kale's heart pounded. He had fought countless battles, faced impossible odds, but now, the fear wasn't for himself, it was for her. He whispered to her, though he wasn't sure she could hear. "Hold on, princess. I won't let anything happen to you." Every muscle in Kale's body ached as he sprinted across the fractured terrain. The ground shifted beneath his feet, making each step dangerous. Debris rained from the broken ceilings above as if the planet itself was trying to push him back. But Kale didn't stop. Each step, each breath, each second counted. Suddenly, a low growl echoed nearby. Kale froze. From the shadows, a Zitharian patrol emerged, their weapons glowing faintly. They were not his allies, they were loyal to the enemies who had attacked the stronghold. Kale's mind worked quickly. Fighting them would endanger the princess, but letting them pass could put her at risk too. He had no choice. With a sudden burst of strength, Kale leaped to the side, rolling as he drew his energy blade. The patrol advanced, but Kale's movements were precise, almost instinctive. He dodged, parried, and struck with efficiency honed by years of combat. Within moments, the enemies were incapacitated, their weapons sparking on the ground. Kale didn't linger. There was no time. He lifted Lyra again and continued running. Hours seemed to pass in minutes. Kale's lungs burned, his muscles screamed, but he pushed on. He knew the med chambers in the human base were their only hope. The journey was perilous, with unstable terrain, acid rains, and strange, carnivorous creatures that roamed the surface. But Kale's determination was unshakable. At one point, Lyra's hand twitched weakly in his grip. Cale looked down and saw a faint glow spreading across her skin. Something was wrong. Her energy was fading faster than he anticipated. Cale's mind raced. He had heard stories of humans helping Zitharians in emergencies, but the differences between their biology were extreme. He needed a solution fast. He reached a narrow ridge overlooking a canyon. The med chamber was just beyond it, but crossing would be dangerous. The rocks were loose, and a single misstep could send them both plummeting. Cale took a deep breath. Carefully, he lowered Lyra onto a safer patch of ground and studied the path ahead. He could see the faint lights of the human base in the distance, shimmering through the violet haze. "Stay with me," Cale whispered. "We're almost there." He moved forward first, testing the ground before helping Lyra step along. The journey was slow, agonizingly slow, but Cale refused to give up. Every time Lyra faltered, he caught her, offering encouragement in his steady, calm voice. Somehow, despite the chaos and danger, a bond began to form. Not of words, not of shared history, but of trust fragile, but real. Finally, they reached the entrance to the med chamber. Human doctors rushed forward, taking Lyra from Cale's arms. Machines beeped, and medics worked quickly, scanning her body, monitoring her vitals. Cale stepped back, exhausted, yet unable to move away entirely. He watched as the medics exchanged worried glances. "She won't last long," one of them said. Her voice tense. "Her biology, it's failing. Only something extreme could stabilize her now." Cale's heart sank. He had trained for impossible odds, but now he faced one he hadn't anticipated. The life of someone whose existence was alien to him. His mind flashed at his own blood, strong and human, capable of healing injuries and emergencies. Could it work? He had no proof, no time to test theories. Yet, the instinct to save her, the same instinct that had carried him across the battlefield, urged him. "Forward, I'll do it," Cale said firmly. The medics hesitated, but they had no better option. Cale knew the risks donating blood could weaken him, endanger his own life, or fail entirely. But the thought of letting Lyra die was unbearable. As the procedure began, Cale felt a strange warmth spreading from his veins, almost like a connection forming between him and the princess. Lyra's body trembled as if recognizing his presence. For a brief moment, Cale thought he could hear her thoughts, not words, but emotions, fear, confusion, hope. It was overwhelming, yet it steeled his resolve. Time seemed to slow as the human and alien shared the silent, invisible bond. Outside the med chamber, the war raged on, but inside, all that mattered was the fragile life of Princess Lyra and the warrior who refused to let her go. Cale's determination, his courage, and his willingness to risk everything would set the stage for events neither human nor Zitharian could have imagined. The night on Varelia was quieting, but Cale stayed by her side, watching, waiting, ready for whatever came next. In that moment, he realized something profound. Sometimes, humanity's greatest strength wasn't weapons or strategy, it was compassion. And in the heart of a dying alien world, that compassion might just change the course of history. The med chamber on Varelia was alive with quiet urgency. Machines hummed softly, and lights blinked across the walls, bathing the room in a pale glow. Cale sat rigidly on a metal stool, his arm extended as the medics prepared him for the blood donation. The air was tense, filled with a mix of hope and fear. Princess Lyra lay on a sleek, floating bed, her breathing shallow, her body pale under the strange light. Every pulse of her heart seemed to echo in Cale's chest. "You understand the risks?" one of the human medics asked, her eyes studying him with concern. "Zitharian biology is very different. Your blood might not help or it could harm you both." Cale's jaw tightened. He had faced impossible odds before, but nothing compared to this. A warrior's instincts guided him in battle, but this was different. This was life and death, and the life in question was someone alien, someone whose people had fought humans for centuries. Yet, looking at Lyra, her delicate form trembling, her glowing eyes fixed on him with a silent plea. Cale didn't hesitate. "I understand," he said firmly, "but I won't let her die." The medics nodded, and one began preparing a small, glowing tube that would connect Kel's veins to Lyra's. Kale felt the cool sting of the needle as it entered his arm, and then the hum of the machine as his blood began its slow journey into hers. He swallowed hard. The sensation was strange, a warmth spreading through his veins, a pulse that seemed to connect him to her, almost as if her life force was intertwining with his own. Lyra's eyes fluttered as the blood entered her system. For a moment, Kale thought he saw a flicker of recognition in her gaze. Then, something strange happened. A ripple passed through the air, a subtle vibration he could feel in his chest. It was not just physical, it was as if their minds had brushed against each other. Sharing a fragment of thought, emotion, or memory, Kale staggered slightly, gripping the edge of the med-chamber bed. "Stay with me," he whispered. "Hold on, Lyra." Her lips parted, and he thought he heard her voice, faint and almost inaudible. "Thank you," it seemed to say. But it was not words that reached him, it was a feeling. A connection so intense that it made his head spin. Kale realized that the act of giving his blood had done something no one had expected. He wasn't just helping her body, he was sharing something deeper. A bond that neither human nor Zetherian could fully understand. The medics worked quickly, monitoring both of them. "Her vitals are stabilizing," one said with relief. "But this connection, it's unusual. Never seen anything like it before." Kale nodded, to focus on Lyra, to care about explanations. She was trembling, but her pulse was stronger, her breathing deeper. A wave of relief washed over him, though it was tinged with unease. The bond between them felt alive, almost conscious, as if it had a will of its own. Hours passed. The machines beeped rhythmically, the medics worked tirelessly, and Kale remained at her side, holding her hand gently. He could feel subtle shifts in her energy, a quiet resonance that seemed to mirror his own heartbeat. It was disorienting, yet comforting, a reminder that his sacrifice was working. Finally, Lyra stirred. Her eyes opened fully, and for a moment, she looked at Kale with confusion and awe. Then, slowly, a faint smile touched her lips. "You saved me," she whispered, her voice weak but filled with wonder. Kale shook his head slightly, his own exhaustion visible. "No, we saved each other," he said. "Just stay still, okay?" She nodded, closing her eyes again. But the bond remained. Kale could feel it, a subtle hum running through his body, a connection that went beyond words. He realized that something extraordinary had happened. The blood had not only healed her, it had changed both of them. As the night wore on, Kale noticed other changes. His senses felt sharper. He could hear the faintest hum of machines, the whisper of air moving through the room. Even his reflexes seemed faster, his thoughts clearer, almost as if the connection with Lyra had awakened something dormant in him. He glanced at her, lying pale but breathing steadily, and wondered what it had done to her. By morning, Lyra was awake and sitting up slightly. She looked at Kale, her expression a mix of curiosity and gratitude. "I can feel you," she said softly, her voice trembling. "Not just your presence, but your thoughts, your emotions." Kale frowned. "You feel the same thing I do?" She nodded. "It's strange, like we are connected. I can sense your courage, your fear, even your determination. I don't know why this is happening, but I don't think I want it to end." Kale swallowed hard. He had faced many battles, seen countless horrors, but nothing had prepared him for this. A human warrior and an alien princess linked in a bond that neither fully understood. It was dangerous, unpredictable, and yet he felt a strange sense of purpose. "Whatever happens," Kale said quietly, "we'll figure it out together." The medics observed in silence, aware that something unprecedented had occurred. One of them finally spoke, her voice cautious. "This bond, it's not just physical. It may alter both of your abilities, your reflexes, your senses, maybe even your thinking. We don't know the limits yet, but one thing is clear. She is stable because of you, and you survived the procedure without any major complications." Kale nodded, but his mind was elsewhere. He looked at Lyra, who was now standing on shaky legs, trying to regain her strength. Despite the danger of war, despite the chaos outside the med chamber, he felt a spark of hope. Together, They might not only survive but change the outcome of everything around them. The first days after the blood donation were strange. Cale noticed subtle changes in himself. He could anticipate movements before they happened, hear conversations from far away, and even sense the moods of those around him. Lyra experienced similar effects. Her mind, once limited by the constraints of Zetherian thought patterns, seemed to expand. She understood human emotions, human strategies, and even human humor. One afternoon, as Cale trained lightly in the med-chamber courtyard, Lyra approached him. "I feel stronger," she said. "Not just physically, but mentally. I can think faster, understand faster. It's as if your blood has given me a part of your humanity." Cale smiled faintly, though he was cautious. "And I feel like I've inherited something from you too," he said. "Your calm, your clarity. It's helping me think in ways I never could before." They began to realize that this bond was more than a miracle. It was a merging of strengths. Human resilience, adaptability, and courage combined with Zetherian precision, intelligence, and grace. Together, they were a force neither species had ever encountered. But with this newfound connection came questions and dangers. Outside the med-chamber, the war continued. Rumors of the human warrior who had saved the Zetherian princess spread quickly. Some saw it as a sign of hope, while others feared it. To enemies, it was a potential weapon of bond that could make Cale and Lyra unbeatable. To allies, it was a miracle, proof that humans could inspire trust and loyalty even among alien species. One evening, Cale and Lyra sat on the balcony of the med-chamber, overlooking the alien landscape of Aurelia. The violet sky stretched endlessly, clouds swirling like restless spirits. Lyra spoke softly, almost to herself. "What happens now?" she asked. "The bond of the war. Everything is changing." Cale looked at her, his expression serious but calm. "Now," he said, "we learn. We adapt. We fight, but not just with weapons. We fight with everything we are. And maybe, just maybe, we can change the war in a way no one expects." Lyra nodded, her eyes reflecting the strange light of Aurelia's twin suns. She placed a hand on Cale's arm, and he felt the connection hum stronger than ever. It was more than survival now. It was trust. It was understanding. It was the beginning of something neither of them could fully explain, but both knew was powerful beyond measure. The night passed quietly, but both Cale and Lyra knew that the real challenges were only beginning. The bond between them, born from sacrifice and courage, was a beacon of promise that humanity could rise above fear and violence. And as dawn approached, casting soft gold light across the alien terrain, Cale understood one thing clearly. What had begun as a desperate act of survival had become the first step in a story that would change both their worlds forever. The first rays of Aurelia's twin suns filtered through the med-chamber's glass dome, casting golden light over Cale and Lyra. They had spent the night talking in low voices, trying to understand the strange connection that had formed between them. It was unlike anything either had experienced, an invisible bond that pulsed with life and energy, linking their thoughts, emotions, and even reflexes. Cale noticed the changes first in himself. He had trained his body for years, honed his reflexes in countless battles, but now he moved with a precision that felt almost superhuman. His senses were sharper. He could hear the faintest hum of machinery, detect subtle movements in the air, and even sense the emotions of those around him. Lyra, too, displayed remarkable changes. Her mind seemed faster, more strategic, able to analyze situations with a clarity that made her almost uncanny. "Cale," Lyra said one morning, her silver hair catching the sunlight, "I can anticipate things before they happen. It's as if I can feel the future in small ways." Cale nodded. "I feel the same. It's like our minds are linked. We can read each other, understand each other, even when we don't speak." He paused, frowning slightly. "It's powerful, but also dangerous. If enemies knew what we were capable of, they might target us, or try to separate us." Lyra's glowing eyes met his. "Then we must use it wisely. Together, we can change the war. Not just survive, but win in ways no one expects." Their first test came sooner than they anticipated. A distress signal flashed on the med-chamber's main console. A human reconnaissance team had been ambushed near a Zitherian outpost. Kale and Lyra exchanged a look, wordless understanding passing between them. Without hesitation, they prepared to leave. The journey across Virelia's jagged terrain was treacherous. The landscape was alive with dangerous acidic pools of liquid, jagged rock formations, and creatures that moved too fast to track with normal eyes. But Kale and Lyra moved as one. Their bond guided them. Lyra sensed threats before they appeared, pointing them out before Kale even registered them. Kale reacted with unmatched speed, neutralizing dangers in ways that left even seasoned soldiers awestruck. By the time they reached the ambush site, the scene was chaotic. Human soldiers were trapped under debris, and Zitherian guards were engaged with a group of hostile aliens. Kale didn't hesitate. He drew his energy blade, moving with a fluidity and precision that bordered on inhuman. Lyra followed, her commands precise, her strategy flawless. Together, they were a perfect combination: human strength and resilience paired with Zitherian intelligence. And grace, the battle was short but decisive. Kel's movements were faster than anyone could predict, and Lyra's tactical commands anticipated every enemy maneuver. Within minutes, the ambushers were defeated, and the human soldiers were safe. As the dust settled, Kale helped a soldier to his feet. You're incredible," the soldier said, awe in his voice. "How did you do that?" Kale gave a small shrug, though he could feel Lyra's presence guiding his actions. "We work better together," he said simply after the rescue. They retreated to a high cliff overlooking the battlefield. Kale wiped sweat from his brow and looked at Lyra. "Do you realize what we just did? That was more than skill, it was something else. Something no one else can do." Lyra nodded slowly. "Yes, our bond. It amplifies both of us. But we must be careful. If we overextend ourselves, it could be dangerous. I can feel that our energy has limits." Kale considered her words. They were stronger together, faster, smarter, but this power came with responsibility. And beyond responsibility, there was curiosity. What exactly had happened when he gave her his blood? How had it created this bond? And could it go even further? Their questions were answered sooner than expected. During the next few days, Kale noticed more subtle changes. His reflexes became almost preternatural. He could dodge attacks before he even saw them, anticipate enemy movements as if reading their intentions. Lyra, on the other hand, began to experience visions, brief flashes of events that had not yet occurred. She saw outcomes, choices, and consequences with startling clarity. Together, they began to act not just as individuals, but as a single unit with shared perception. One morning, while training on a rocky plateau, Lyra suddenly stopped. Her eyes glowed brighter than usual, and she raised a hand. "Something's coming," she said. "I can feel it." A wave of energy. Approaching fast, Kale immediately went on alert. His senses confirmed what Lyra had felt. From the horizon, a swarm of hostile drones advanced, their metal bodies glinting in the sunlight. Without speaking, they moved in perfect coordination. Kale's blade flashed, cutting through the first wave of drones with precision. Lyra guided him, her commands anticipating the swarm's tactics before they acted. It was a perfect demonstration of their bond. Kale moved as though Lyra's thoughts were his own, and Lyra predicted outcomes before they happened. Together, they dismantled the attack, saving an entire supply convoy from destruction afterward. Kale leaned against a rock, breathing heavily. "We're changing," he said quietly. "Not just physically. Mentally, I can feel it. I think we're becoming more than human and Zitherian." Lyra looked at him, her eyes reflecting both fear and wonder. "Yes, but we must remember why this happened. We are linked because of your courage, your sacrifice, Kale. That's the human part that saved me, and now it drives this bond. But we must use it wisely. If we lose control, we could become a danger to everyone, not just ourselves." Kale nodded. "I understand. But imagine what we could do, what we could achieve if we control it. The war, the suffering. We could end it faster, save more lives." Lyra smiled faintly. "Then let's start learning. Together. Over the next several weeks, Kale and Lyra trained, explored, and experimented with their abilities. Kale discovered he could hear faint signals from long distances, detect subtle vibrations in the ground, and sense approaching enemies before they were visible. Lyra began to see possibilities in battle, predicting outcomes, anticipating movements, and even communicating with Kale without words. Their teamwork became legendary, but it wasn't just combat. Their bond allowed them to understand each other on a deeper level. Lyra began to grasp human emotions, courage, fear, determination in ways she had never experienced. Kale, in turn, began to understand Zetherian logic, patience, and empathy in ways that changed how he approached every decision. Together, they were a force unlike anything the galaxy had seen. One evening, as they watched Virelia's twin suns set, Lyra turned to Kale. "Do you realize what this means?" She asked softly. "We're more than soldiers now. We're a symbol. If humans and Zetherians see what we can do together, maybe the war doesn't have to continue the way it has." Kale considered her words, the wind tugging at his hair, the alien sky stretching endlessly before them. "You're right, but symbols aren't enough. We need action, and we need to be ready, because others will try to stop us, whether they understand our bond or fear it." Lyra placed a hand on his arm, and he felt the familiar hum of their connection. "Then we'll face them together. No matter what comes, we'll adapt. We'll survive. And maybe we'll change everything." As night fell over Virelia, Kale and Lyra stood side by side, gazing at the stars. The bond between them pulsed like a heartbeat, steady and strong, a constant reminder of what had begun with a single act of courage. The transformation was not just physical or mental, it was something greater, something that could inspire hope across the galaxy. And for the first time, Kale realized the truth. Humanity's greatest strength was not in its weapons, not in its technology, but in its ability to act with courage, empathy, and determination. Through his bond with Lyra, he understood that humans and perhaps all beings could rise above fear, adapt to impossible odds, and achieve the unimaginable. The galaxy outside Virelia's med chamber was vast and dangerous, full of enemies and uncertainty. But Kale and Lyra no longer faced it as individuals. They faced it as one, united by a bond born of sacrifice, courage, and compassion. Together, they would shape the future not just for themselves, but for everyone who lived among the stars. The sky above Virelia was a storm of color, swirling with violet and orange clouds as the twin suns dipped closer to the horizon. Kale and Lyra stood on a rocky ridge overlooking a valley where battle had erupted. Reports had come in that a rogue alien faction, dissatisfied with both human and Zetherian leadership, was attacking a small settlement of civilians. The humans and Zetherians in the area were outnumbered, and without intervention, countless lives would be lost. Kale flexed his fingers around the hilt of his energy blade, feeling the familiar surge of focus and strength coursing through him. Lyra's hand rested lightly on his arm, her glowing eyes scanning the battlefield below. The bond between them had deepened over the weeks since the blood donation, their connection now so strong that Kale could almost anticipate her thoughts before she voiced them. "We can't wait," Lyra said, her voice calm but firm. "If we delay, the civilians won't survive." Kale nodded. "Agreed. But this isn't just about rescuing them. We need to make sure the humans and Zetherians here coordinate. If we work together, we can end this without unnecessary losses." With a subtle gesture, Lyra sent a wave of mental instructions to Kale. He felt them clearly, guiding his movements, helping him plan the approach. Together, they descended into the valley, moving with precision and speed that stunned anyone who saw them. The first wave of the rogue attackers spotted them immediately, swarming forward with energy weapons and mechanized armor. Kale reacted instinctively, striking with his energy blade in a series of fast, precise movements. Each attack was guided by Lyra's tactical insight, her mind predicting the enemy's movements and weaknesses. It was like watching a perfectly synchronized dance of war, human and Zetherian working as one. Lyra's voice, calm and commanding, cut through the chaos. "Flank from the left. Cut off their retreat. Protect the civilians at all costs." Kale followed her instructions flawlessly, moving faster than any normal human could, neutralizing enemies before they could react. The rogue soldiers didn't understand what was happening. Their attacks seemed to fail before they even began, as if their opponents could anticipate every move. Soon, the civilians were surrounded by human and Zitherian defenders. Kale and Lyra coordinated the two groups, using their bond to issue simultaneous commands that neither side had thought possible. Humans provided brute strength and resilience, while Zitherians used agility and advanced technology. Within minutes, the attackers were driven back, their formation shattered, leaving the valley safe. Kale knelt beside one of the rescued civilians, a young child trembling in fear. He offered a reassuring smile. "You're safe now," he said gently. "No one will hurt you." The child looked up at him with wide, grateful eyes and whispered, "Thank you, human hero." Lyra placed a hand on Kel's shoulder. "See, this is what we can achieve together. Not just victory in battle, but hope." News of their success spread quickly. Soldiers, civilians, and leaders alike began to talk of the human warrior and the Zitherian princess who had united their forces. Some were skeptical, wary of this unusual alliance, but most were inspired. Kale and Lyra had shown that cooperation, courage, and trust could achieve what neither side had thought possible. In the days that followed, Kale and Lyra visited settlements, training humans and Zitherians to fight together as one. They developed new strategies that combined human adaptability with Zitherian precision. Soldiers began to trust one another, learning to rely on instincts guided by a bond they didn't fully understand. Kel's courage and Lyra's insight became a model for everyone, demonstrating that strength was not just in weapons, but in unity. However, not everyone welcomed the alliance. Some Zitherian leaders feared that humans would gain too much influence, disrupting their rigid social structure. Some human commanders worried that trusting an alien princess was too risky, that her strategies might prioritize her people over theirs. Whispers of doubt and suspicion began to circulate. Kale noticed it first. During a council meeting, a human general questioned their methods. "We can't rely on one warrior and one princess to guide us," he said sharply. "What if this bond fails? What if we make mistakes because of it?" Lyra responded calmly, her voice steady and unwavering. "We are not asking for blind trust. We are showing results. Look at the lives saved, the battles won, the civilians protected. Our bond does not replace leadership, it enhances it. Together, we create a force far stronger than humans or Zitherians alone." Kale added his own voice, firm and commanding. "I've faced impossible odds. I've seen what happens when people fight without unity. This alliance, it works. And it can work for everyone if we choose to make it work." The council fell silent. Slowly, the skepticism began to fade. Soldiers and leaders alike started to see the possibilities. Cooperation was no longer just an ideal, it was a strategy that saved lives. But even as the alliance strengthened, Kale and Lyra sensed a new danger. The rogue alien factions that had attacked the valley were not isolated. Across the galaxy, others were watching, plotting, and preparing. Their bond made them powerful, but it also made them a target. Those who feared change, who feared the rise of humans in the galaxy, would not hesitate to strike. One evening, while reviewing battle plans, Lyra spoke quietly. "Kale, we are stronger together, yes, but the galaxy is full of those who will see us as a threat. We must prepare not just for battle, but for those who want to stop this alliance before it grows too strong." Kale nodded, his jaw set with determination. "Then we prepare. We show them that unity, courage, and trust are more powerful than fear and division. We fight not just for ourselves, but for everyone who believes in a better future." The days passed in a blur of training, planning, and small skirmishes. Kale and Lyra led combined human Zitherian units, demonstrating tactics that were both daring and precise. They became legends among their soldiers, symbols of what could be achieved when differences were set aside and courage guided action. During one particularly challenging operation, they were tasked with defending a critical outpost from a heavily armed enemy force. The attackers outnumbered them 3-1, their weapons and technology superior in many ways. But Kale and Lyra approached the situation differently. Kale felt the movements of the enemy before they even appeared, his instincts sharpened by their bond. Lyra analyzed the battlefield with unparalleled clarity, predicting the enemy's tactics and guiding their forces with exacting precision. Together, they turned what seemed like a hopeless situation into a decisive victory. The attackers retreated in confusion, unable to comprehend the coordination and strength of their opponents' as the dust settled. Soldiers cheered, both human and Zitherian. Kale stood beside Lyra, breathing heavily, his energy blade still glowing faintly. "We did it," he said, a smile breaking through his exhaustion. Lyra smiled back, her eyes shining. "Yes, and this is just the beginning." That night, they stood on the ridge overlooking the battlefield. The twin suns of Varelia had set, leaving the sky alive with stars. Kale felt the bond between them thrumming softly, a constant reminder of the power they shared. "We've done more than win battles," Kale said quietly. "We've changed the way humans and Zitherians see each other. We've shown that we can be stronger together." Lyra nodded. "And now, others will follow. More humans, more Zitherians. They will learn that unity is not weakness, it is strength. But we must remain vigilant. Our enemies will not wait. They will test us, and we must be ready." Kale clenched his fists, determination in his eyes. "Let them come. We'll face them together, and we'll show them the strength of unity, courage, and trust. No one can break this bond, not now, not ever." As they prepared for the next day, a sense of purpose filled them. The alliance was no longer just a strategy, it was a movement, a beacon of hope in a galaxy torn by war. And at the center of it all were the warriors, linked by courage, sacrifice, and an unbreakable bond that could inspire change far beyond what anyone had imagined. For the first time, Kale truly understood what it meant to be more than a soldier. He was a symbol of humanity's potential compassion, bravery, and resilience in the face of overwhelming odds. Lyra, equally, was more than a princess. She was a bridge between worlds, a guide showing that understanding and unity could overcome centuries of conflict. Together, they were unstoppable. The galaxy seemed to hold its breath. Across star systems, fleets of ships waited in tense silence, unsure of what the human warrior and Zitherian princess might do next. Kale and Lyra stood aboard the bridge of a human Zitherian command ship, overlooking a massive fleet of both human and alien allies, ready to face the largest threat they had ever encountered, a coalition of rogue factions, determined to crush the fragile alliance before it could grow stronger. Kale tightened his grip on the console. His senses, heightened beyond normal human capacity, detected subtle shifts in the enemy formations. Lyra's glowing eyes scanned the data streams, her mind processing possibilities at lightning speed. The bond between them hummed like a living force, linking thoughts, instincts, and strategies so seamlessly that they move as one mind into bodies. "This is it," Lyra said quietly. "The final test. If we succeed, the galaxy may finally have a chance at lasting peace. If we fail," her voice trailed, the thought unspoken but heavy in the air. Kale placed a hand on hers, feeling the familiar pulse of connection. "We won't fail. Together, we can do what no one else can. We've come too far to stop now." The enemy fleet began its advance. Ships of unimaginable size and firepower closed in, bristling with weapons designed to destroy both human and Zitherian technology. But Kale and Lyra were ready, with the bond that had grown from Kel's act of courage, the blood donation that had saved Lyra. They were no longer simply human or Zitherian. They were a united force capable of extraordinary coordination and foresight. "Deploy the fleet in a staggered formation," Lyra commanded, her voice calm but firm. "Humans take the flanks, Zitherians cover the center, and we lead the vanguard. Kale, your instincts will guide the first strike. Trust me, I can anticipate their counterattacks." Kale nodded, feeling the surge of energy through him. "Understood. Let's move." The fleet surged forward, cutting through the darkness of space. Laser beams and plasma cannons streaked across the void as the first wave of enemy ships engaged. Kel's reflexes, enhanced by their bond, allowed him to dodge attacks, strike with precision, and lead the vanguard with unmatched efficiency. Lyra's commands flowed seamlessly, predicting enemy maneuvers and guiding allied ships in perfect coordination. As the battle intensified, Kale noticed something extraordinary. Their bond had begun to affect not just their minds, but their physical abilities. He moved faster than any human had ever moved, dodging attacks that would have destroyed even the most advanced human fighters. Lyra's clarity of thought allowed her to manipulate battle strategies in real time, issuing commands that seemed almost impossible. Together, they became more than leaders, they were a force of nature. The Rogue Coalition pressed harder, sending massive warships toward the Allied fleet. Kale and Lyra realized that this was the moment that would decide everything. They had to act decisively. But the risks were immense. "I have an idea," Lyra said, her voice low. "If we combine our energies, my strategic vision, and your instincts, we could create a strike powerful enough to disable their command ships. But it will push us to the limits." Kale didn't hesitate. "Do it. We've faced impossible odds before. We can do this." They closed their eyes briefly, letting the bond pulse through them. Energy flowed between them, linking their thoughts, their strength, their very being. Kale felt a rush unlike anything he had ever experienced. Lyra's mind merged with his, not overpowering, but guiding, enhancing, amplifying. In that moment, they were no longer two individuals, they were a single, unstoppable force. With a silent understanding, they acted. Kale launched forward in his vanguard ship, striking with precision guided by Lyra's insight. Every movement, every calculation, every decision flowed perfectly. Taking the enemy by complete surprise, energy beams struck command ships, disabling shields and engines in seconds. Zetherian and human forces moved in flawless harmony, cutting off reinforcements and neutralizing threats. The battlefield seemed to bend to their will. Where there had been chaos, there was now clarity. Where there had been fear, there was courage. Soldiers and pilots on both sides of the alliance marveled at the seemingly impossible coordination inspired by the unity and bravery of Kale and Lyra. Even as the battle raged, Kale felt the strain. The bond that amplified their abilities also drew heavily on their energy and focus. Lyra's presence in his mind was comforting but demanding, requiring constant attention, yet neither of them wavered. Together, they pressed forward, their combined efforts striking at the heart of the Rogue Coalition. Minutes that felt like hours passed. The enemy command fleet faltered under the precise strikes. Their forces scattered, disorganized, and unable to recover. Kale and Lyra moved through the battlefield like a single blade cutting through steel. Finally, the last of the enemy command ships fell silent. The remaining rogue forces, leaderless and disoriented, retreated into the void, leaving the galaxy momentarily quiet. A cheer erupted across the Allied fleet, human and Zetherian alike. Pilots and soldiers clapped, cried, and celebrated, knowing they had witnessed something extraordinary. Kale and Lyra floated above the battlefield, their hands brushing, their bond still pulsing with energy. "We did it," Kale whispered, exhaustion and relief mingling in his voice. Lyra smiled, her glowing eyes reflecting both pride and amazement. "Yes, and we've shown what can be achieved when humans and Zetherians work together. When courage, trust, and understanding guide action, nothing is impossible." The victory was more than just military. It symbolized a turning point in the galaxy, a proof that unity across species could overcome fear, hatred, and division. Kale realized something profound. Humanity's greatest strength was not in weapons or technology, but in courage, empathy, and the willingness to sacrifice for others. It was that same strength that had saved Lyra and now had reshaped the course of war. As the fleets returned to their home bases, leaders from both humans and Zetherians convened to discuss the future. Kale and Lyra were at the center, their bond a living testament to what could be achieved. There was still much to do: rebuilding, negotiation, and continued vigilance, but hope had taken root. Lyra turned to Kale, her voice soft but confident. "The galaxy is watching now. They see humans and Zetherians working together. They see what courage and compassion can achieve. Our bond, it is more than just ours. It is a symbol for everyone who believes in a better future." Kale nodded, feeling the weight and power of her words. "Then we keep moving forward, We guide, we protect, and we inspire. The galaxy may be vast and dangerous, but together, there's nothing we can't face. Over the following weeks, Kale and Lyra traveled between worlds, visiting human colonies and Zetherian cities. They trained joint forces, mediated disputes, and demonstrated strategies that emphasized cooperation and mutual respect. Where there had been suspicion and fear, there was now admiration and trust. The impossible bond between a human warrior and an alien princess had become a beacon of hope. On a quiet night, as Virelia's twin sun set once again, Kale and Lyra stood on a high plateau overlooking the planet. The wind rustled through Lyra's silver hair, and Kale felt the familiar hum of their connection. "We've come a long way," Lyra said, her voice soft but full of conviction. Kale smiled. "And it's only the beginning. The galaxy will remember what we did here not because of battles, but because of courage, trust, and unity. That's the true strength of humanity." Lyra nodded, her eyes shining with understanding and the strength of Zetherians. "When we choose to work together, imagine what the future could be: humans and Zetherians, side by side, learning from each other, growing together. No more endless war. Only hope, progress, and peace." Kale looked at the horizon, feeling the bond between them pulse softly, a reminder of everything that had begun with a single act of courage. He thought of the day he had chosen to risk himself to save Lyra, of the blood that had bound them, and of the incredible journey that followed. The outcome was unbelievable, Kale said quietly, a small smile on his face. "But I think we made it. Reality." Lyra reached for his hand, and their fingers intertwined. "Yes, and the galaxy will never forget it." As they stood together, watching the twin suns disappear beneath the horizon, Kale and Lyra knew one thing with absolute certainty: humanity's courage, combined with trust and unity across species, could change the galaxy. The impossible had become possible. The weak had become strong. And the story of a human warrior and an alien princess would inspire generations to come. The bond between them, born from sacrifice and bravery, had reshaped not just a single battle, but the entire future of countless worlds. It was proof that courage, empathy, and determination could surpass fear, hatred, and division. And in that moment, Kale realized something even more profound. Sometimes, a single act of selflessness could ripple across the stars, creating change that no weapon ever could. The galaxy was vast, full of challenges yet to come, but Kale and Lyra were ready. Together, they would face the future unafraid, unstoppable, and united.